Welcome to the Sideline Live podcast. Subscribe for more episodes and follow our social media at the Sideline Live. We'd love to hear from you. On episode 27, I am delighted to be joined by Brian O'Loughlin of Movement 101. We had a really interesting chat about movement, mindset, success, life and much more. Brian dropped loads of knowledge and value during our conversation, so you might want to take some notes on this one. Enjoy. Hi Brian, thanks a million for coming on the podcast.
Thank you very much.
Would you be able to give a bit of an intro about yourself for maybe the listeners who don't know who you are?
Yep, my name is Brian. I am from a company called Movement 101. We help our athletes and our clients physically move better. So we train athletes, both professional and amateur, to kind of prepare their body for the demands of their sport. And then we kind of just help general population, gym goers, etc., just to physically move well, to do what they want to do with their bodies.
Perfect. So a lot of my listeners and the followers on the page are usually maybe a younger generation, a lot are still in secondary school and kind of that leaving cert pressure. Can you take us through kind of those years, maybe 17, 18 and up to how you got into movement?
Yes. So I left school and what did I do? That's a good question. I actually did a journalism course for 6 months.
Okay.
I didn't really know what I wanted to do outside of it. I was really good at English. I enjoyed writing and stuff, and kind of journalism was kind of a stopgap really, but I didn't really know what I was doing. But it was meant to be a 2-year course in Clontarf, so it was only kind of a PLC thing, but it only lasted 6 months. Mm-hmm. I left and then got a job in a hotel. It was the Celtic Tiger, so there's a lot of money around. Mm. So like I earned a fortune as pretty much like just a bellboy. Okay. A fortune. I thought this was normal life. Like, you get so much money in the Celtic Tiger, it was ridiculous. But obviously it wasn't what I wanted to do. So the idea was that I was doing this to kind of decide what I wanted to do. So I was there for about a year and a half, and I made a decision to go back to Clontarf, I think it was at the time, to do a personal trainer course, which I think is only a 6-month course, but it was the 2-year course in Clontarf. Mm-hmm. And that was the best decision I ever made. So I did that. After I did that, I did a physical and health activity degree up in DKIT, a science degree. And after that, I was old, in the sense of I finished college, I must have been about 24, 25. And I just went into the industry then. So I had been working in between college. So when I qualified in Clontarf, I was working in gyms, I had clients, etc. And then I did DKIT. And then after DKIT, I went out to the world and I decided to work half with clients and half in a gym. And then decided to go straight fully into movement and on my own and kind of do this thing. But there was a kind of a segue in between that of why I went to movement. But yeah, it was a long kind of way to get to where I want to get. And that's one thing I would say, if anyone's listening, who is under the age of 25, actually under the age of 30, it's absolutely fine. Like, you don't have to know exactly, especially if you're in school right now and you have no idea, that's absolutely fine. You do not need to know the answer. You more than likely don't know the answer. And I'm quite confident for an awful lot of people, your answer will change in a year, in 5, in 10 years. The biggest thing I would just say is don't be afraid to explore. And don't be afraid to constantly question what you want to do, what you're interested in, and try it. And if you don't like it, pivot. Yeah,
exactly. You still have time when you're
exactly. Yeah, and but that's the thing. I'm 34 now, and you really forget your age once you get over the age of 30. Like, you can keep learning. Yeah. All the time. I'm not stopping. I'm not slowing down. I'm looking ahead into my life, into my 40s and 50s and 60s, in terms of improving my body, improving my mind, improving my life. You don't, life just doesn't stop when you go out to the world and you have to do this thing forever. You're continually learning and you can do whatever you want to do.
100%. And what got you into movement there? You kind of mentioned it briefly. It was an injury, was it?
Yeah, so I was in the industry, just teaching and doing classes and training clients and stuff, but I had a shoulder injury that was really bad that I couldn't get rid of. So I went to people to try and help me, and I got some short-term relief, but could never really deal with the issue. And it really got me down. Like, I got quite depressed. I felt like a fraud as a trainer because I couldn't train myself. I was telling people what to do, but I couldn't do them movements and stuff. And it really made me question me being in the industry then, because I didn't like the idea of just everyone training for fat loss and looking this way. And social media was starting to come into it then. And, it was all about 6-packs and kind of getting your arse out and that kind of crack. But I didn't know enough about movement, so I was exploring movement because of my injury. Yeah. But I didn't know enough about it. But then obviously the more I explored, the better I was physically moving, and I actually got myself moving pain-free, and that kind of gave me a bit more confidence to explore further. And after some deep questions of what do I want to do in the industry, do I want to leave it, do I actually want to do this movement stuff and pursue it? And it was a really, really tough time for me to answer and say, no, I'm actually going to fully commit to this movement side of things, find a mentor, really delve deeper into it. And that was only about 26 or 27 that I started to do that. So that was only about, say, 8 years ago that I fully was like, right, I'm now doing a movement thing. I'm gonna advertise that I do a movement and I help people physically move better while still doing fat loss for the first year or so, you know. And then slowly I just transitioned to full-time movement. And Movement 101 is only 3.5 years old. So as a company, we're very, very young. But yeah, and so that's just something else I would say. No matter what you do in your career, no matter what age you are, there's always kind of fear. Like, you're always afraid to do a thing that deep down you probably do want to do. Yeah. It doesn't get any kind of easier, you know. And it was the best decision I ever made, one of the scariest decisions and one of the toughest decisions. Like, it was tough work to get to where I am now and where I kind of want to go, but such is life.
Yeah, exactly. And you were saying there, so before you set up Movement 101, you kind of were by yourself, still doing fat loss and then moving into movement yourself. Yeah. How long did that fully take for you to just be a movement coach, let's say?
Yeah, well, like fully, I suppose really it wasn't until Movement 101 that was 100%, I would say, because beforehand for about 2 years, I think I was called Move More, what was my name before Movement 101, and I'd say 80% of my clients were movement based, and say about 20% were still kind of fat loss then, and then a year or two previous to that would have been mainly fat loss, some movement, and then slowly that percentage obviously kind of changed. So yeah, it was the transition to fully movement probably didn't happen until Movement 101, and even that was a bit of a risk, you know, because it was like no one really cared 4 years ago about movement or mobility. You know, it was like people like, and even before that, when I was doing this, people, I was like, well, go and do your stretching. What the hell are you talking about? Again, but you're kind of like, well, I have a passion for this. I really believe in this. So I'm kind of, this is what I kind of want to do. Not because it's any different or whatever, just because I genuinely believe it can help people, you know? So when we opened Movement 101, definitely, it was certainly, like, the landscape now has completely changed. As you've seen and you can see through social media, everyone's mad for movement and mobility and kind of health with their training and stuff. Like, that wasn't the case in any shape or form 4 years ago. So I hope to think that we were somewhat, you know, had some of an influence in that, you know, in changing. But also it's great to see, because I do believe that should have been the case, which it wasn't, because especially at social media at the very start, like I said, as bad as it is now, all it was like bodybuilding and you know, that's all the reason you trained. Whereas the narrative is slowly changing to health. It's obviously never always going to be there because sex sells, but yeah, it's sorry, I don't know why I'm rambling on here.
No, sorry. No, I understand what you're saying. And I was going to ask, you've definitely noticed then there's a big change in perception, and with general public, was there much at the beginning, not hate, but we'll say backlash or feedback about?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, I wouldn't say, like, hate's definitely too strong a word to say that we got any hate or anything like that, but like, I suppose there was a misunderstanding of why we believed that it was important. The message that we were trying to deliver maybe wasn't as refined as it is now, and like anything else, when you kind of get results, or you kind of show the proof into the pudding, then people can kind of buy into it a bit more, you know. So yeah, like, I mean, like, people were certainly interested in fairness. I mean, they obviously were interested because it has taken to a stage now that it wasn't 4 or 5 years ago. But it was a different question that we were kind of asking people to ask, you know. So, and that was the one thing that we always said about the industry. One thing we didn't like, myself and Rob is my business partner, and like we started at like normal gyms. So for example, he was in FlyFit and I was been in normal gyms like that, that we would have trained clients in class and stuff. And both of us, we end up talking and gotten together, because when we came down to teach classes, people would just be standing there looking at you, like being like, right, can you tell me to move? Like, you know, they wouldn't be warming up, or they wouldn't be moving, or you know, they'd literally be like, right, I'm here now and you're going to tell me what to do. And what really annoyed us was, especially with the industry, it's a very low barrier of entry. So you can kind of anyone can kind of be a PT or kind of train people in terms of their fitness. But we wanted to educate people, because it's not about just this class. It's not just about this squat or this movement. It's about giving you the tools to go and do what you want to do for your body, but actually your life, you know, because it's not just about, and we'll obviously get into it in terms of Gaelic and stuff, it isn't just about the movement, because even you said about your injury. You have issues there, like mentally and emotionally, with your injury history.
Exactly.
And you know, what you would say is like, injury is like an insult to the nervous system. It's trying to protect you, and that's a real thing. Like your fear of that injury, of your fear of getting on that pitch and actually doing what you want to do with that injury. Like we can train that, we can educate you to make sure that you have much more confidence to go and perform in that pitch. Never mind from a strength perspective or using the gym, etc. But just through education. You know, and that's where the real life changing aspect comes from, health and fitness, because you know, it's not just about body fat. It's not just about social media. It's so much deeper than that.
Yeah. And when did you kind of said there, like, obviously a lot of challenges setting up the business and it was a big leap. When did you start to see success with Movement 101? You were kind of thinking, right, we're really onto something here.
Well, James McCarthy probably.
Okay.
No, in fairness, no. I'd say even before that, 'cause we were talking off podcast about James McCarthy was kind of the first person of all the lads that came into us. But no, even before that, because what we had done, we had members originally in the studio and we had built our own movement assessment.
Yeah.
And I was just kind of randomly getting people messaging me asking about the movement assessment.
Yeah,
It was
including
only,
me.
Yeah, there we go. So, but it was only built for our members. So we had never thought it was going to be a product or service that we would kind of deliver to the public.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden I was like, great, I'll just do one or two people here. I maybe it's kind of friends or something. I don't really know how it's kind of started. But then I was like, oh, actually, this is a service we can provide. Actually, it was meant to be for just our members, but there seems to be an interest here for people who want to physically move better and get assessed and stuff. So that was kind of the real catalyst going, oh, maybe there is something here. And then I suppose, like I said, when James then got in touch, then we could just see that obviously he found value in what we were doing, and then we knew we could help him, and then that was definitely an even bigger catalyst, I suppose.
Yeah, you spoke about it before with your approach to your clients and why everything started to snowball because people found success. Can you explain your approach? I think it was person first, athlete next, and then specific to your sport, for example, Gaelic football.
So again, we just go back to that kind of health perspective. The one thing that we'd always look at for our athletes, say, is just the health and longevity of their body. But the health and longevity for their body to do what they want to do forever. Because they're not going to be, for example, a Gaelic footballer forever. They'll actually only be a Gaelic footballer, until they're 30, 35, max, we'll just say 36, 37. So, you've a whole lifetime after that to live. And we have just dealt with so many kind of professional athletes with huge movement issues that limit their life after they stop playing professionally or they stop playing their sport. So a big focus for us is that you are a human being first. So we have to look at you as a human being and improve you as a human being. How you physically move, the strength you have, what you can do with your body. Because actually, if we can improve that, you naturally become a better athlete. You naturally become a better Gaelic footballer. But then after we kind of go through that human aspect, we can look at the athlete itself. So an athlete kind of has to have some level of coordination and be able to sprint and jump and do all that. We can get a bit more specific for that. And then we'll say for the Gaelic athlete, we can look at, just say, James McCarthy. He's a midfielder. We know he's going to be covering an awful lot of ground, kind of forward and back. We can look specifically at the sport and then, begin to work on that. But the sport doesn't matter. The athlete doesn't matter. The human is the first and foremost. We need your body functioning well. We need you to be able to do what you want to do with your body first and foremost, from having that health, having that control, but having that longevity to go and be able to perform. Because our biggest thing is, people always say, it's never an issue until it's an issue, and unfortunately, especially in professional sport, most people don't care about their athletes after they're done. It's only about performing now and, performing at the weekend and scoring points or goals for me right now. But in 10 years' time, you're going to be here. You're going to be living your life. So make sure you can move well.
Exactly. How come, like, for example, with the professional athletes and maybe, the elite sports people, they've access to physios and all these different people to help them, but why do they come to you? Why do they seek help outside of their sport to come to you and get advice?
I don't know, really. I suppose in terms of why they would come to us, maybe to kind of just resonate with the message. Like, it is a little bit different, I suppose. But also, just in terms of what we do with movement and mobility when it comes to sport, professional sport, it's kind of a second thought because they have to get their gym sessions in, they have to get their conditioning in, they have to get their tactics in, they have to get things ready to perform at the weekend. So mobility is always seen as a warm-up, as a cool-down, as foam rolling. It's never really seen as a priority. And that's just one thing that we've always done. We've always programmed it just like strength training, just like you would anything in the gym. It has to be given that nuance, it has to be given that focus, and it has to be given a progressive program over time, because that's how the body's going to kind of adapt, So when it comes to a physio in professional sport especially, they just have to get the player ready for the weekend. And that's what's most important, So they have to just kind of focus more on short-term goals. Whereas because I'm not under pressure from a manager or a team to get performing tomorrow, I can look at it from a longer lens. I can look at it and go, well, look, we are where we are now. Let's look at 3 months, 6 months, 12 months down the line, and let's kind of reverse engineer that. So there's no real pressure on me. And that's one thing I would have said I wanted to get into professional sport from working with these guys. But now I'm happy that I'm not in professional sport. Because I don't want to change my principles in order to get them to perform when I wouldn't necessarily agree that they should perform, So it's nice to be able to be a consultant, say, more so than kind of be having to make decisions for the weekend kind of thing.
Yeah, that's interesting. I actually had a question: would you go into it, or would you like to train a team? But that's really interesting that you've gone away from that, and we kind of spoke about it. Your best availability, or your best ability is your availability, and that kind of seems to be the message at the moment in sport.
Yeah, and I suppose the biggest thing, because we've had conversations with a few intercounty football teams and hurling teams, and we nearly got over the line a couple of times to be part of their backroom team.
Okay.
And looking back now again, it was a good thing it didn't go ahead. At the time, I definitely was disappointed with two teams in particular, because I think we actually would have made them potentially get over the line to win something. But it's just a different thing. Like I said, there obviously is long-term goals that they have, but they just, performance is key. As we know, if Mayo or even Dublin, if they don't perform the upcoming season, there's a huge issue. That has a huge impact on the whole organisation and the backroom team and even funding, etc. and what's going to happen. So, like, there's just pressure for you to perform right now, and it's no good saying, well, that's going to take 12 months and whatever. So that's the beauty in terms of what we can do. We can take these individuals outside of that scope. We can kind of work with them in the long term and really, apply our principles.
And do you think that approach is the reason for your success with these athletes or clients?
Yeah, I suppose the biggest thing that really would be buy-in, though, that they see the worth of why they're doing it, and they see the importance of doing it, because ultimately, if they don't do the work, they don't really see any benefit or really get the benefit for the pitch, I suppose. So really, for me, it's to make sure that they understand why they're doing it. It's to educate them around everything that we do, so they can ask better questions of themselves, but then they can actually apply the principles to their own training, so they don't need us. I think that's the biggest thing in terms of what we're trying to achieve as well, is there's principles around what we do. Not necessarily it's about this movement, this one movement, but more the underlying principle behind why we do that movement. If you can apply that to your own training, if you can apply that to your own life, well then off you go. You have tools now for life to implement, and you don't need us.
So how do you measure that success with a client or an athlete? Is it them nearly leaving at the end and applying those principles to their life and other areas? Yeah,
pretty much. I mean, even for example, like I'd say, like John Small originally would have came into us 2 years ago, maybe even longer, 2.5, 3 years ago, with back pain, and he would have been into me, say, once a week and stuff. Whereas obviously, like with what's happened over the last year and COVID and stuff, it wouldn't be. But just say it was normal times. You'd see him maybe once a month or whatever, because he knows what he has to do. He's confident in terms of what he's doing. He can make his own decisions based off his own training. And I'm just kind of there just to be like, yeah, cool, we kind of just change this around or change that around. And that's again the kind of beauty of that, because once you have that kind of level and layer of competence in terms of movement, you have the tools now yourself to kind of go and do it. And that's that's definitely the aim with all of our athletes. Is to really give them the principles. It's just so key, because it's not about right now. It's not about Dublin. It really isn't. It's for John Small when he's 45 and he wants to go and play golf with his mates, or he wants to go and hang around with his kid or whatever. Because that's applying them principles for that amount of time. In your own life, that's huge.
100%. It's bigger than the 7 in a row now. What they're going for.
Exactly.
And what, like you mentioned a lot of names there. What separates them from the likes of me, like just a general person playing sport? What makes the elite the elite? Well,
the first thing is genetics. So we talked about this kind of off podcast. A lot of these guys are literally designed to play this sport. Like they always say about being a winning goal at the Olympics. The best thing you can do is pick your parents. So like you're genetically born to be a sprinter. You're genetically born to be a marathon runner. You're genetically born to play Gaelic at a certain level, or Premier League footballer. So they definitely have that ahead of others. There's no doubt about that. But having said that, they get the most out of their genetics. Like they live a lifestyle that just most other people wouldn't. They don't understand the sacrifices that they make, that they can't go out with their friends, they have to say no to certain occasions, they have to go and train when they don't want to, and they just make decisions that have huge sacrifices for every aspect of their life that you wouldn't necessarily see or kind of know about. And then their mindset. There's no doubt that they have a mindset that they actively work on. So they actively work on their mindset, and it is just one of a high performer. Like it's at a different level. How even for the example, the likes of James and John, who got in touch with me, so they went off their own bat. They got in touch with me. They paid off their own money for me, to me, to get the education and stuff. Outside of their own training, and that's what the very best do. They look for different avenues. They look for that extra 1%. and they're never satisfied. They're continually looking to upgrade their mindset, upgrade their body. What can I do to make myself a better athlete? And it's just never ending. And that's infectious to me as well. You can take just bits off that. It's absolutely amazing, you know. And
do you think they're born with that mindset, or is it developed over time?
I think you are a product. Well, you're definitely a product of your environment. So I like, in terms of, if you're born into an environment that, definitely you could have a head start, we'll say. And then especially now, because Dublin have won so much and they have such a high performing team, there's no doubt that all of them are at a certain level and standard that you kind of need to get up towards. But no, again, they actively work on their mindset. They actively go out of their way to make decisions to ensure they're constantly growing and improving. And it's an aspect that we definitely see is a huge limiting factor for an awful lot of athletes. They don't work on their mindset. Because when it comes down to, we just say athlete A and athlete B being the exact same. The only difference is that decision that they have to make. And that decision they have to make usually is going to happen under fatigue, and it's going to happen at a stressful time and under, let's say, a circumstance of intense pressure. So I have to score this point, I have to make this tackle, I have to make the decision of what I'm going to do right now in a split second. So the nervous system is doing that. It's really subconscious. So the idea being, like training, if you can train and train and train and train, it happens automatically. And there's one thing that we use actually, so it is a really good tip if you're doing your own training. If you're doing any intense training, one, don't listen to music. Because the idea is all you're trying to do is survive. So if you're doing sprints and you're feeling sick or whatever, think of your brain and your body going, I'm going to die here. Because you're physically taxing it so much. The body's just trying to survive. So because it's trying to survive, if there's no outside influence in terms of music or something that's going to distract you, all you have to be, you'll connect with your body an awful lot. And we have a practice called What Comes Up. So I have a book that I have, say, beside me, and I'll go and do sprints. Whatever comes up, I'll just write down. And that could be absolute gibberish. That could be a business idea. That could be something, whatever comes up. But I will go and do a sprint. So I'll do 200-meter sprints for, I think I do 6 rounds. By the third or fourth round, I literally am going to get sick. I feel awful. But I just will write stuff down. Things will just pop up in my head and I'll just write them down. And some of the stuff that I get from that is amazing. Because my brain, my body's like, whatever, I'm just trying to survive. And you'll always hear this phrase that whatever you want is inside of you. So you have everything inside you already. And what happens is distraction just gets in the way. Life takes over. Social media, listen to music, podcast, everything. We were just constantly bombarded with just more. But when you actually are just trying to survive and there's nothing else that's distracting you, you'll be surprised at what comes up. And then whatever comes up, it can be beautiful. It can be something that you go, oh, wow, I never thought about that before. And you can journal on that, you can work on that. But that's actively working on your mindset. That's actively improving you as a person. Has nothing to do with your physicality, but can take you to the next level as a human being and in turn then an athlete. And things like that might seem a bit like left of center or a little bit different. But in order for you to be the very best that you want to be, you have to do things that other people will not do. 100%. It's literally as simple as that. And that's what, again, people do. So you'd never look up to somebody, no matter who they are or how successful they are, and go, I can never do that, or he's done this, or they're lucky because of that. And go, you've no idea how hard they've worked. Anybody, no matter how gifted or lucky they were to get to that position, has worked to get there. And the tools you have at your disposal to do that are massive. They don't cost a huge amount of money. They just take effort. They just take time. But they ultimately take a bit of discipline to do.
I love that, because I'm a devil for, do everything, listen to music or podcasts, and that's really interesting. I'm going to try it now, training. And it's
quite tough as well, because I would have been the same. It's like even going to bed, I would always listen to the podcast. It's like a distraction of going, because this one thing I always say as well, for the last year I've been purposely meditating and really making sure that I get it done. And what my mentor always said to me, like, people literally can't sit with themselves in a room for 10 minutes. And again, you might have heard, they go, oh yeah, whatever. Try right now to do nothing, but sit down. Like, it's so difficult to do. You'll just be like, oh, I have to get up, or this thing is here.
Check the phone or something.
There's always something. So if you can't sit for yourself for 10 minutes, you can't truly understand what you feel. You can't truly understand what you kind of want from your own being. And like, again, this idea of what comes up when you're training, again, your brain is just trying to survive. And you'll be so surprised of what comes up. But that's an action. Again, you have to go and be really uncomfortable, go and sprint and push yourself to near oblivion. But then also you have to be in that chaos. You have to go, hold on a second here. What do I feel? What's going on? Don't drown it out. Don't try and distract it. Don't try and get away from this. Just sit with this. Just allow it out. And then you can journal on that. But that's a system. That's a system that you can use Geez, imagine doing that for a year. I've done that for a year. Imagine doing that for a year.
Yeah.
And what could come up and what you can learn from that and how you can go deeper from that. And that's the difference of the 1% of people who really perform in sport, but also just in life.
Yeah, I love that. I'm definitely going to rob that. And I actually had it written down as a question, but, and don't take this in the wrong way or any athlete listening, but there's actually nothing really special about you or any of these athletes. As you said, they just do it. They have the discipline and they just do it every day and they don't let life get in the way.
Yeah, and the thing is, life does get in the way. And when the shit hits the fan, that's terrible.
Yeah.
And let's go again the next day. And that's what James Clear, I think we
we're a big,
there.
big fan.
Yeah, so like Atomic Habits, but it's just like you've systems. That's why you have a system.
Yeah.
The system is there because the chaotic nature of life will take over.
Yeah.
But I know I'm going to sprint twice a week. So I know I can do my what comes up twice a week.
Yeah.
Now, if I can't sprint today because my child is sick, well, I sprint twice a week. I've only done it once this week. I've got 3 more days this week. I'm going to sprint one of these 3 days.
Yeah.
You know, so life takes over. I can't do it right now, but there's a system here that I stick to, that I do, that if I do this, I know I'm going to get the result just because I'm being consistent with that, you know?
Yeah.
And again, that is the difference. That they show up when they don't want to. They make sure that they can't do it today, that they will do it tomorrow. And you just have to do things you don't want to do. Like
100%.
you really, really do. It's that simple. Like it really is that simple.
Yeah, I was actually on Instagram there yesterday and there was a couple of athletes I followed. Just out of coincidence, they all had to do a running session yesterday and they all actually put up, well, the people who share stuff on social media was, I actually don't want to do this running session, but it's out of habit and it's because I have to do it that I'm doing it. But I genuinely just want to sit home and...
Brilliant. And I think it was James Clear as well, but being successful at that, they're really good at doing the boring stuff.
Yeah.
And that's the difference between the professional and the amateur.
Yeah.
He just keeps doing the boring stuff. And it's really true in terms of what we do in business and being an entrepreneur. There's a lot of boring stuff that's very monotonous and you have to keep doing and make sure that it's done. And if you keep doing that, that will compound over time. And you know, and that is the difference.
100%. You spoke before about it. I think it was kind of like a time hack or something you had, but for training. And you would put in your calendar, you kind of mentioned there with the sprints, do you like schedule your workouts into your calendar?
Yeah. So I live by my calendar. I'm about 2 or 3 weeks booked up in advance. So when you got onto me originally, I was like, oh yeah, in say 2 or 3 weeks time, let's lock it in. And Tuesdays and Thursdays, for example, are kept for podcasts or meetings, things that wouldn't be normally what I would do.
Okay.
But yeah, I schedule. So I always make sure I get in my training, my family time, and then I suppose you can call it like, say, hobbies. So they're first things that go in. So I make sure that when am I going to train, I'll put that down 4 times a week and then twice, we'll say, for sprints. My family time with my child and my wife, I make sure I'm putting that in. And then my hobbies, if I'm going to play golf or do whatever. So they all go in first every Sunday. Yeah. And then everything else is built around that. But even with that, so every Monday we have meetings with all of our team. There's about 4 or 5 meetings that we have. That's every single Monday. Like I said, Tuesday and Thursday are kept for ad hoc things. If I'm asked on a podcast or if I have to do something or a webinar or whatever. But it's all laid out. Okay. So I just stick with this. So I know exactly what I'm doing all this week. I know that I have to get these things done. But the reason they go in first is that they make me be the man that I have to be in order to actually do the things that I say I want to do. Because I've burnt myself out on like 2, if not 3 occasions. I properly burnt myself out where my body was like, no, you're not doing this anymore. And I would have went into like a depression for 2 or 3 months because my nervous system was so fried. Like I literally was just like saying yes to everything, working 7 days a week, but I wasn't training, I wasn't meditating, I wasn't doing my hobbies, I wasn't seeing my family, my friends. But these things I do value. Yeah. Like it's all well and good to say I love movement, and I do, and I want to improve it. But I really value my time with my family. I really value my fitness and me being strong. So decisions I make now have to make sure that I'm aligning with my values. So they have to go in first because I really value my health. I really value my time with my family. And if I can't do them, well, why do I have a business? There's no point. The only reason you have a business is to build a lifestyle that you love to have. So I'm able to train. I'm able to see my family on a Thursday afternoon, put them in, and now you can work around that, no problem.
I love that. Yeah, that's really clever. And do you then, you kind of mentioned there meditation, journaling. Is that sort of like a daily habit that you have?
Yeah, well, I have a mentor, Miles. He's actually an Irish guy who's in India. So once a month I have a call with Miles. Yeah. It's about a 2 or 3 hour call, and we kind of go through a meditation, or sometimes we even just have a chat around the whole practice. And then he'll give me a meditation to work on. I don't do meditation every single day, but I get it done about 3 or 4 times a week. And then, like I said, I have other things, the likes of what comes up, and then my training is a kind of practice as well. But yeah, I've actively done that for over a year now, actually, 3 or 4 times a week. Because the one thing I couldn't do was meditate. I just couldn't do it. I couldn't sit down with myself. I couldn't talk to racing. I couldn't stop this. So I found Miles, and Miles has a really good technique called the Congruency Method that he's made up himself. And it's just about sitting, and he asks questions, and you're feeling different body parts and what's going on. So it's a lot more nervous system, body stuff that I'm kind of into. So that's something I would say to people as well. You don't have to meditate. You don't have to do it the way that everyone does it.
Yeah.
You find something that works for you.
Yeah.
But having a practice to keep yourself still or to listen to your body is something that I would definitely encourage. But that, again, this is through trial and error with myself. This didn't work for me. That didn't work for me. That didn't work for me. Oh, I found something here. This works.
Yeah.
Because there is no one answer.
Yeah.
Just like movement, there's no one perfect thing for everybody. 100%. We're all individual. We all have our own ideas. We all have our own mindsets and goals and lives. So you find somebody or you find something that you align with, and it will keep you consistent, because that's all that matters.
And was all these kind of things like the meditation and journaling, was that originally from when you were burnt out, or did you always do them anyway?
No, well, I would have done them to a certain degree, yeah. So I definitely would have like journaled, and I would have meditated, and I would have had these practices, obviously training and all, but I wouldn't have been as consistent, and I wouldn't have been as structured with it.
Okay.
For example, like I would have done meditation stuff in the past, but I didn't have someone to learn from.
Yeah.
And that's what I have. I essentially have a mentor now. You call him a spiritual mentor, a mentor if you want. But like that's the difference, is I have someone to hold me accountable. I have someone to teach me a new way, and I have someone that I can ask questions about or learn more from, as opposed to just going onto YouTube or just hopping onto Spotify and hopping onto an app, which I would have done, or read a book or something, you know. Yeah. The difference is I'm actively learning off somebody else. I'm paying somebody, and that, I think that's the difference for me. That's been a game changer. And then like, I've had experiences now under meditation of something that you might hear of, like mad experiences that I would have never had previously.
Okay.
And it's just a consistent practice over time. And the beauty of all of this stuff for me is it just shows me something that I hugely believe is just how adaptable the human body is. Yeah. But you have to do the work, and 100%. It's not easy. So you have to put a system in place. But you really, like, I think the biggest thing for me is just finding really what you want from life, having a clear vision, and then being that person today.
Okay.
Because that's one thing that I would have not done. I would have had that vision and said, oh yeah, I want that.
But you didn't.
Yeah. I wasn't doing the actions that were ever going to get me there. Okay. You know, sorry, that's a lie. I would have done some of the actions, some of the time.
Not consistently.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that was the issue. And that's why I think when it comes to being burnt out, you're burning yourself out fine, you're exhausted, and you're saying yes to everything you should be saying no. But you're actually just completely out of alignment with your life. Like you're doing things that deep down you don't want to do. Yeah. And eventually your brain, your body's like, no. Yeah. You are living a life that you do not want to live, and stop. Do
kind
something
of
about
giving you a message.
Yeah, definitely.
And what's that vision then for you? What is that sort of, what do you want to get out of life?
Well, just to live a life of well, to have impact and have a freedom, I suppose. Have an impact in terms of Movement 101. From day one, our aim was to help millions of people physically move better and explore how they move. And then just have a freedom to be able to, for example, on a Tuesday, come down here and do a podcast and interact with people like yourself to learn from and stuff. So it's just to have experiences in life that I really value, to be surrounded by people that I can learn from, and just to try and create something that I believe has value for people. You know, it's really... I'm 34 now, and it's definitely it's true in the sense of the older you get that you do begin to understand yourself more. But I think the only difference for me as I get older is I just have these practices. You know, I have these things where I reflect, I journal, I meditate, what comes up. I'm just being much more consistent of asking myself continuously of what I want, who am I showing up as every single day. You know, I don't really see the need to be getting pissed drunk every weekend because it just doesn't align with my values. You know, I don't want to feel like crap for 2 or 3 days. I don't particularly want to drink, 6 points down the local all the time. You know, I just have bigger visions for my own life and for things I want to do and for my family and for Movement 101. So just having a really, really clear vision. Yeah. A really clear vision of what you want from life. And that can mean money, but there's so much more to life than just money, you know. It really is like who you want to see every single day, the person you want to show up as, and the things you actually want to do. And if you're really clear on that, brilliant. You know where you're going, and then just begin to do it.
That's, as you were saying that, I was kind of thinking, well, that's out of the norm, that you're not going down to the pub every Friday, every Saturday with your mates. It's not like the normal path that a lot of people take. They're all kind of following each other like sheep nearly.
Well, but I suppose I did that when I
Yeah.
was in my 20s. I would have went down to the pub and got pissed drunk, and eventually kind of made a decision, we'll say, around 27, 28, to stop doing that.
Yeah.
And I do think like these things are experiences. Like I do think like doing them things is fine.
Yeah.
To understand maybe 10 years later that I don't want to do that anymore.
Yeah.
So it's not that the things that I did were bad or I shouldn't have done them. It has brought me where I am now.
Mm-hmm.
But the idea for me is just to constantly realize that you never get there. Like you're never at the end. So like I'm 34 and I still feel like I'm 19. So when I'm 40, so my business partner is 44.
Yeah.
And like he's just like me. You're constantly like, oh yeah, what we're going to do today? And like, so no matter how much money you have or whatever success you have, you still have to get up. You're still surrounded by your family. You're still like in your own thoughts.
Yeah.
Like nothing ever changes.
Yeah.
So no matter how successful you get, or no matter how much money you have, whatever, you're still here every single day, and life goes on.
Yeah.
So the biggest thing is like, well, what do you want from life? What do you want to achieve? What experiences do you want to have? Who do you want to be surrounded by? And get really, really clear and really, really specific. Because if you get really clear and really specific, then you can just begin to work towards that.
Okay. And did you ever have a moment where you like really sat down and wrote that out, or was it kind of just?
Yeah, well, actually, the biggest thing was when that decision to go from in the gym environment to more movement based.
Mm-hmm.
I actually went traveling by myself for I think 6 months to Southeast Asia.
Oh wow!
And that was a decision of whether I'll leave the industry or I'll go down this movement path, because the industry I didn't believe in, but the movement stuff I didn't know enough about.
Yeah.
So I went to Southeast Asia, like traveled, had a great time, but I actually went to a yoga retreat twice. So for 6 weeks the first time and 8 weeks the second time. But the aim it wasn't actually to do yoga, it was just actually just to go away for 6 weeks and just to journal and see what I want from life. And it was actually really tough. Like, it was a really tough thing to do, and to really see how much I was bullshitting myself and actually what I do want from life and who I'm showing up as and stuff. But I made the decision then after that trip was to come home, find a mentor, and do this thing that you say you do want to do. And that was the catalyst to change, to kind of do that.
Okay.
It was quite a tough thing to do.
Yeah, I'd say so. It kind of reminds me of that. You have to sit down with yourself. You don't like
Yeah.
if right now you can't really go to Southeast Asia because of COVID.
Yeah.
But if you just sit with yourself in a room, you can kind of not recreate it, but it's similar enough.
Yeah, well, even the idea of traveling though, for me, and I don't know about anybody else, but like when you just go to somewhere else, I just think obviously it's like, all right, nobody knows me here, so all of a sudden it's like, oh yeah, I can do whatever, I can be the real me or something like.
Yeah.
So, but you can just do that now,
Yeah.
Like you said, you're kind of being pulled left, right, and center by people who don't really know what they want themselves either.
Yeah.
So just be mindful and ask yourself the question going, well, do I want to do this? Whatever that is. Like whether that means going to study this thing in college, whether that means doing a job that you want to do right now, whether that means you training or going to the pub or whatever it is. Like whatever you're doing, you're showing up at every single day, you're doing it. Is it what you want to do?
Yeah.
And you can just sit down and ask yourself, what do I want from my life?
Yeah.
And if you don't know, sit down and write. You just keep writing, and that can take a week, that can take a year, that could take 10 years, but you will have no idea until you sit down with yourself and just get it out. Just let whatever comes up. And again, having the practices of them things, of training, of having a calendar and being stuck with them days, just means that you can begin to work towards the things that are important to you. And it's a huge thing that we see where a lot of people we would deal with in pain. It's very similar to fat loss. It's not that people don't know what to do when it comes to, say, fat loss or even necessarily pain. They know they're not sleeping enough and all this kind of stuff. Biggest thing is they're not doing it. So they're not actually doing the practices they know they have to do. And most cases, they don't really know what they want to do. They're kind of just living in a kind of a blur of a life going, well, everything is terrible. And go, well, that's fine. So if everything is terrible, what's the one thing you can do today to make it better? And go, well, what do you mean? I don't know what I want. Okay, well, maybe the one thing is to sit down
and write what you want.
What do you want? Like Jordan Peterson always says, you should have two visions. One pulls you towards it, and one you run away from. So one vision is your perfect life. The other vision is hell. So if you were to make a terrible decisions to get pissed drunk or take drugs, that's your hell. And then the vision is if you were to show up as a person that you know you can be, that's that. So you run away from your hell, and you're being pulled towards your vision. Now I haven't got a hell. I just have a vision. I'm being pulled towards the vision. But both would kind of make sense. Because you could easily go down towards that hell if you make bad decisions. You can easily go towards that vision if you make good decisions. Both of them are tough. Both of them require you to get up every single day and take action.
And would you ever look back at what you wrote, not specifically that time in Southeast Asia, but just in general, would you ever reflect back on your notes or your journals?
Yeah, I actually, the only thing is the other day, I found, well, not found, they're always there, but 5 of my journals over the last 5 years. And it's brilliant. So if you journal, don't ever throw your journals away, because it is amazing when you read back a year, never mind 5 years ago, and what you believed.
Yeah.
And one thing I've always heard, even now when I look at my posts from social media a year ago, I'm quite embarrassed about what I said and what the hell I was like. And a mentor to me said, if you look back in a year's time and you're embarrassed, that's brilliant. That means you've grown.
I love that.
And if you look back in a year's time and you're like, oh yeah, I'm deadly, you're literally the same person you were a year ago.
Yeah.
And the idea is that if you're not growing, you're kind of staying static, and really staying static is essentially dying, because we're ever evolving. So the idea is that if you're continually growing, you should look back at some stage and you go, what was I thinking? But the best thing with that is when you look back and go, oh my God, I thought that 5 years ago.
Yeah.
I would never think that now.
Yeah.
So imagine you go, what can I think in 5 years' time?
Yeah.
So and that's the beauty of life, because you are where you are now, but where do you want to go? Just keep taking steps forward. And when you look back, you go, wow. So like self-reflection is something that I probably don't do enough. I think is really, really important, because I'm constantly creating and you're looking to do the next thing and building all the time. But reflecting on how far you come, reflecting on what you used to believe in, the person you used to be, makes you really appreciate going, okay, like enjoy now the present,
Yeah. And when you say journaling, what I love about it is we can all have different types of journaling. We can all do it differently. How do you journal?
Well, there's a couple of things I do. So my journal will always be 3 things I'm grateful for. So I'll always have that at the start. Then I will say 3 things I have to get done for tomorrow. So I'll usually do this in the even time. 3 things I have to get done tomorrow, and then what I got done today that has to be taken over tomorrow, and then 3 things I have to get done tomorrow. And then I'll just write. And usually it's on the day.
Okay.
So, either I'll go, oh, today was a great day, or today was a terrible day, or this thing happened today. And I'll just write.
Okay.
And then if it's something that's good, that could turn into, so something like, say, that was good last week. I was like, oh, today was a really good day. We had this happen. The business is really good. This project is coming aboard. And then over this. And then Sailor, my daughter, came up to me and did this. And before I knew it, I was just writing about Sailor and my child and how much I love her. And that went on for pages. So it kind of just goes wherever, you know. But there's a system there that I'll make sure I write about the day just gone by, good, bad, or indifferent. And then it could go kind of anywhere. Okay.
What we were talking about, we weren't specifically mentioning athletes, but as you were saying, it's that constant improvement and looking for it. That's my, I don't know if you have a definition of high performance, but that's sort of my interpretation of it. What do you think is high performance?
I don't know, really. I think that it's so many elements to it, you know. Like high performance for me, definitely it means like having standards.
Okay.
And then you having to show up to them standards every single day.
Okay.
Because like, again, something else that I've done over the last 2 or 3 weeks is I wrote my eulogy.
Okay.
So I look back on, someone will read out the father I am and the man I was and and it's actually really revealing. It's really like, it's actually a really, really difficult thing to do. It makes you realize how bad of a son you are, how bad, how areas of your life that you're not really giving 100% or that you should be much better in.
Okay.
But that's going to raise my standards. That's going to make sure that I kind of try and, be better.
Yeah.
And I think that's just what high performance is to me.
Yeah.
Is you're just continually trying to grow as a human being. And it's not just, because high performance at the top level isn't just about sport.
Yeah.
There's so many aspects to it. And that's the one thing, like, so for example, if you are an athlete, something happens in your personal life can massively affect your performance.
Yeah.
They're human. They're human beings. So a high performer for me just makes sure that their whole life is what they want, essentially, because if they're showing up as a better husband and father, they're going to be a better person than athlete on that pitch.
Yeah.
So you're just continually trying to improve every aspect of your life and just be a better person. And that's the standards that you have, and that transfers then to everything. And that's the one thing I get from all my top level athletes. Like, they're much better footballers or Olympians than I could ever be, ever in a million years.
Mm-hmm.
But there's so much that I can just take from their life and what they do and their mindset that I can just apply to my life. It's amazing.
And I actually had a question there. What have you taken from them? What have you applied?
I suppose like this not the single-mindedness, but the belief in terms of who they are from the work that they do, I suppose.
Okay.
Because they do have, like like they would lack confidence in certain areas or trying to go and perform or whatever, but they leave no stone unturned. The best of the best don't.
Yeah.
They leave no stone unturned. And a lot of the athletes that I work with, who are the best, say, they are so giving to me. It's unbelievable.
Okay.
Like they're so confident and sure in their own lives and them as human beings that they look to help you.
Yeah.
How can I help you do this, or can in any kind of aspect? And that's just something that has been massive for me. So it's like, how can I give value to you, for example? How can I give you more value as we are here right now?
Yeah.
If you could give that to every single person that you meet, you're just going to be a better person yourself. And that's something that high performers and the top level athletes I work with definitely do.
I love that. It reminds me, I don't know if you know LeBron James, but he'd be like basically the best basketball player in the world, but what he's done off the court, like he has a school now for underprivileged kids and done amazing stuff. And you said he's given back, and I think that's a key part of high performance, is you're more than just the athlete on the pitch or on the court. You're beyond that.
I think that's the biggest thing. Even, for example, I remember like I had a client, per lad who had autism, young lad, and then Dean gave him a jersey. Dean Rock gave him a jersey. Went out of his way to get Evan to sign it on the team, and gave it to him, gave him a picture and all that. And it made his day, the kid. You know what I mean? I think that's why all these lads, they realise like the privileged position they're in, and how many people look up to them. But then that's their impact. You know what I mean? Like, forget 100%. The pitch. Like the impact that they have off that pitch for people to go and be the people that they want to be. Like that's massive. You know, that's huge, because ultimately that's what it comes down to. Like, again, they won't be footballers forever. Yeah. But that experience and that helping hand and giving to somebody else, that just makes you a better human, and that's amazing. Like, yeah,
that's a really nice story, actually. And talking about those clients in particular, the kind of high performing individuals, with their approach to training, then where do you start with the person? When you get to the athlete in sport, what do you start with?
Well, it would be dictated by the athlete. You know, like I mentioned off podcast, we're training a professional footballer in the UK, and he has 2 games a week. So there's not a huge amount that we can do, you know, and so it will always be dictated by the athlete and where they are in season and how much training they're doing, if they have any time off, etc. So it would be an individual in that sense. But really, I suppose, with any athlete in season, I'm really programming around their program. Okay. So I'm making sure that they're getting the work they need to get done that they're not getting from their own program. But then I'm actually just looking at their program and going, can we just tweak 1 or 2 things? For example, this split squat or this deadlift, can we change that variation slightly just to bias weaker areas that we know that if we can improve that for you, we can get more movement through that hip, or we can get more movement through that ankle, and that can transfer over towards the pitch or whatever. So it's kind of a balancing act, really. Okay. So you're trying to give them something that they're not getting from their training, and then you're just trying to tweak their training that they're already doing and go, can we get more out of it for you as an individual for your current needs?
Okay. And in terms of pre-game routine, that's kind of a big thing I like to discuss on the podcast. Is there anything specific you give? I know it probably depends on the athlete, but is there anything specific you give to them to do before a match and kind of get activated? Yeah, again, it would be like, if anyone follows me on Instagram, like we're big fans of kind of like, say, active movement. So when it just comes to Gaelic, anything you can get around the hips and the pelvis will work really well, just because of the nature of the sport. When you walk, when you run, you want that pelvis to be able to move, the hips to physically move, and then when you get in that pitch, you're going to be turning side to side. Yeah. So I'm always giving my athletes movements around the pelvis and the hips, 100%. Okay. So that could look, there's numerous different drills that we could give, but we're making sure that they're working hard. It's not just kind of activating your glutes or whatever. Like they're cramping, they're sweating, they're really getting into areas. Before a game, yeah. Because again, even like as taxing as they may be, within 2 or 3 weeks, the body responds really quickly. It's just your body weight. You're working into an area that you're really not used to, and the body will recover, will adapt really, really quickly, you know. So like, it's not going to be too taxing for them to actually physically do beforehand. And obviously they're getting stronger as they do it. So one thing I would say is look to potentially progress your warm-up every month. Okay. Not to keep doing the same thing. Because the warm-up is, although it's meant to activate and get you ready for what you're going to do, the idea is that you've kind of adapted to this warm-up. You're kind of past this one that you've done for 2, 3, 4 weeks. So the aim is like, right, cool, can I do a kind of slightly harder one next month? Yeah. Because if you do that every single month, by the end of the year, you're now doing a warm-up that you couldn't have done a year ago. Yeah. So now you've got more control, you're much stronger, you're able to push your body a hell of a lot more. And then, genuinely, you may not need to warm up. Okay. Like, I don't warm up when I train. I trained yesterday. I just went straight in. I didn't warm up. That's mad. I would never have thought of, like, even in a team perspective, that's really interesting about the warm up, because if you're doing the same thing again and again, you're warming up then because you're so used to it.
So remember the intent.
Yeah.
Everyone always sees it as a warm-up.
Yeah.
But it's not a warm-up.
Yeah.
It's a program. You can just program it as such.
Yeah.
And that's the difference. So the intent behind what you're doing is massive. So warm-up, like a cool-down, any of your training, you should be programming that like it's progressing, that you're pushing more, your body's adapting, and you are able to physically do more. And that's the beauty of this, so that's, like I said, that's a different thing of doing a warm-up for 12 months progressively, or doing a warm-up like everyone does. Just gonna do a warm-up.
Yeah, they copy each other.
Exactly. You just do it.
Yeah.
I have to do it.
The Dublin lads are doing it. Let's do it.
Yeah, exactly. But if you're going to look at it that lens, going, let's progress my warm-up.
Yeah. You're
going to be doing more each month, and like I said, you shouldn't look. Definitely, you should warm up for a game. Like your nervous system is up. I'm not saying you shouldn't warm up.
Yeah.
But you shouldn't have to warm up. Like I should be able to run in and squat or jump or do a run.
Yeah.
Straight away. Because that's the indication that my nervous system, my brain is ready. And if you're constantly ready, then you're like, I can perform right now when it matters.
Mm-hmm. And kind of then talking about after the match, I know you mentioned before you'd give them sort of light movement. What's your sort of post-game routine then, maybe?
No, I haven't got any post-game routine, so I don't prescribe anything, because it comes down to the big pillars of sleep, calories, nutrition, protein, water intake. All of them things are so much more important.
Okay.
Because if you haven't got them levels and layers and blocks in place, you doing a cool down or stretch for 10 minutes. Exactly. It's not going to make a huge difference. And again, you're trying to ask yourself better questions. Have you got these fundamental foundations in place? Because you doing a 10-minute cool down is not the issue. The issue is that you're only sleeping 5 hours a day, or you're stressed at nines because of your job, or you're doing way too much training. You're training 6 days a week and your body's not actually able to recover. So again, the warm up and cool down, whilst important, you have to look at the bigger picture. Because if you can get the bigger picture right, the cool down and warm up look after themselves, and they're kind of a supplement to that foundation, just like say supplements are. Again, you can take all the supplements in the world, but if you're not getting the amount of calories and proper protein in, then again, you're just not being able to recover or push your body or get strong and build muscle. And that supplement isn't going to be having the same effect at all.
I like that analogy. It's what you're doing is nearly more than movement. It's other things beyond that.
And that's kind of the aim really as well, because people always ask, what's the movement for my hip or what's the movement for my back? And then we'd have a questionnaire. It's about 20 questions long. Okay. And it's nothing to do with your hip or your back. It's all to do with your lifestyle or your mindset or your training volume or your like it's like if you are training 6 days a week and like I said you're sleeping 5 hours a night and you have an issue with your back, I can give you an exercise in the world, but
it's not gonna help.
You're training like crazy. You're not sleeping. Like your body is so stressed that you're now adding more stress with a different exercise onto it. You don't need more stress. You need quite the opposite, less stress. So a lot of times when we train clients, we just change our volume around. We wouldn't stop them training. We go, well, how about we go to, instead of you doing 4 sessions of 2 upper and 2 lower, let's make them 3 whole body. Let's just do that. So we're taking out 1 session a week. We're still hitting all the areas, but now we're giving you an extra day to recover. And you go, geez, I actually feel better doing that. Okay, cool. Because there's diminishing returns eventually. You have to keep the goal. What are you trying to do? Drop body fat and build muscle, or perform on that pitch? They're 2 different things.
And with that questionnaire, what are some of the questions that you ask surrounding maybe sleep and mindset?
Well, even just like how many hours of sleep would you get? Mindset, do you actively work on your mindset? For example, we say, how many nature hits do you get a week? So it's like, do you get out at all in nature? Did you go for a walk? What else? I'm just trying to think. Well, injury history would obviously be a big one. What is your injury history? What have you done in the past to improve how you move? Because a lot of people would just use likes of foam rolling or massage or again activating their glutes. What the approach they're taking isn't necessarily the best approach. So all of these things just gives us information of potentially where we could improve. So if you're not actively working on your mindset, we can begin to work on that. If you're not getting any nature hits, you're getting no fresh air, you're not getting any sunlight whatsoever, we can just make sure you're getting out 3 to 4 times a week. Making sure you're getting out for 10 minutes with no music, you're getting natural light, and do that first thing in the morning. That can completely transform your sleep. So all of a sudden now, it's nothing to do with your actual sleep and you being stressed. You get no sunlight whatsoever during your whole week because you're working and then you're going training at nighttime. So we can just get more sunlight. Your body gets used to waking up going to sleep at night time, and you get an extra hour or two of sleep.
Mm-hmm.
That improves your recovery. You don't feel anywhere near as sore, and now you're adapting to the stimulus you're giving it, and you're progressing a hell of a lot quicker 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 weeks down the line.
Yeah, that was actually, I had written down here from your podcast, you kind of have 3 non-negotiable habits that they don't have to do, but for the new online members. Can you explain those 3?
Yeah, well, the 3 would be, and again, they're non-negotiable in the sense of they just work really well, so they don't necessarily have to do them if you didn't want to. But one would be to get natural light. So as soon as you wake up, try and get some natural light, and ideally that would be outside.
Mm-hmm.
So that means going out the back garden, or if you can't go to the back garden, you can just stand by the window, but for at least 10 minutes. And even if it's not sunny, you will still get some benefit just from getting natural light first thing in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
Not to go on any electronics for the first 30 minutes.
Okay.
And that's more kind of a stress response, because most people will go to social media, or they'll check their emails, or they'll check whatever. So you're going straight from a kind of rest or digest state of sleeping straight into this kind of stress response.
Mm-hmm.
So 30 minutes of nothing really, essentially. And even ideally with that, you would, if you could, have a practice of journaling or movement in that as well. Of that first 30 minutes.
So it's not like you're just sitting down for 30 minutes doing nothing.
Yeah, exactly. Well, it could be, though, genuinely. It could literally be doing nothing.
Yeah.
And that's absolutely fine as well. But I suppose the biggest thing is that you're not being distracted or taken away from the present moment.
Yeah.
Because this is the issue that we have, which is all of our athletes, is like we're trying to allow them handle more stress.
Mm-hmm.
So if we can just take some stressors away, well, all of a sudden they're able to handle the stress that is in their life right now.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not that we have to make their body more robust or anything like that. We just want to make sure that can we reduce some of the stress,
Mm-hmm.
so now the stress that is on their body is nowhere near as taxing. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, it does. I know what you mean. How much is it then physical and psychological
In what sense?
in terms of the athletes and performing?
Again, it'd be quite individual. So, you couldn't say for definite it's, 50-50 or this kind of percentage.
Yeah.
But there's no doubt that, the mindset aspect and, psychologically has a huge impact on what you can physically do.
Mm-hmm.
Even, for example, if you look at professional athletes, some professional athletes will have a little tweak of a hamstring or a groin and will play. Others won't. So even just that alone, they've both had the same, we'll say, issue with their body, but then it affects someone completely different than it does another person. That can go down to their past experience, that can go with their injury history, that can go with genetically their makeup.
Mm-hmm.
So it does make a difference in terms of that. But then you look at, you mentioned about LeBron, and then you look at Ronaldo or Messi, or again look at James Mccarthy, the best athletes in their sport. They again do things. They are showing up as a different human. They've systems in place every single day.
Yeah.
That other people just don't. Like LeBron, even I've read about LeBron that he'd be ring the trainer, say I'm going to be in there for 5 o'clock in the morning. He's like, oh yeah, cool. He rings about 2 o'clock. So your man gets there at 5. LeBron's been there for the last hour.
Yeah, he's in a full sweat when your man shows
up.
Yeah.
So you think I'll see you there at 5. He's like, 5 o'clock. Okay, and he's there for a full sweat already for an hour.
Yeah.
And I think that's the difference of the very, very, very best.
Okay.
LeBron is the person he wants to be on the basketball court.
Mm-hmm.
So he's literally living a life that he wants to live by being on that court.
Yeah.
He's obsessed.
Yeah.
And without it, he isn't LeBron James.
Yeah.
And I think that's the difference when it comes to the very, very best.
Okay.
They're obsessed. Like, it's even for me as an entrepreneur in terms of doing what I'm doing. I love what I do.
Yeah.
I
can
it.
tell.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I do genuinely,
Yeah.
like, I mean, I really, really, really enjoy it. Like, I mean, again, I did it for years without getting paid. I do a lot of stuff now, not getting paid to do it, because I just really, really enjoy it. And I wouldn't be the person that I want to be or I am right now today without it.
Yeah.
So I really identify with it,
Yeah.
And that's actually one thing that they would say about how to build a habit, is you're identifying with that. You're a person. So I am the movement person. I am that person. And LeBron is the basketball player. He's the best person in the world. So he embodies that. Everything that he is that. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you think you have to be obsessed with it though to be the elite? Is that the
100%.
difference? Yeah.
I genuinely do. Yeah.
Okay.
I think it's impossible. Like, if you want to get to the top level of anything, and that could be in any industry, you have to be obsessed. Because the best thing I mentioned there about doing the boring stuff.
Yeah.
You will not do the boring stuff unless you're obsessed.
Okay.
You just won't. You'll get too bored, or it's too much effort.
Yeah.
But if you're obsessed, it's just what you do. It's in your makeup, because you just understand that if I don't do this thing, I can't do this thing that I absolutely love to do.
Yeah.
And it's even then, coming back to, I suppose, to that vision and really understanding who you are as a person, because then you're able to give yourself 100% to it, you know.
Yeah.
And you're not doing it, like LeBron's not doing it so people think he's an animal.
Yeah, just for himself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He shows up as a better husband, as a father, as a better person, just through being able to do what he does.
Yeah.
He's able to have the impact around the whole world and everyone around them just by being able to 100% be engrossed and be that elite basketball player.
Yeah.
But it's same, we've mentors in business and stuff, and anyone who's the top of their field is obsessed.
Yeah.
But we're all obsessed with something.
We are.
We just either aren't sure of kind of what that obsession is, or we ignore it and go, oh well, that's not an obsession. Like everyone watches Netflix or whatever, and they don't realize they watch every single night.
Yeah.
You know,
that's an obsession.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, 100%.
Yeah.
It's just not an active obsession that one that you may be kind of aware of, or two, maybe isn't bringing you towards the goals that you kind of want to get, you know?
Yeah.
And that's the beauty of, again, asking yourself these questions. Are the actions I'm taking every single day, because they're actions you are taking every single day that are giving you the results you have right now.
Yeah.
So you can change that.
You're currently on that path to, let's say, to success, because I get the sense that you're not finished yet and you've plans coming. Does it get overwhelming? Do you ever think, this isn't great, is this too much?
Yeah, there's no doubt. I mean, it's such life, really, you know. Like, I think, like, if anything was easy, everyone would do it, and life isn't easy, you know. Yeah. So, it definitely does. Life has its challenges, and business has its challenges, and things occur that you haven't necessarily planned for. Yeah. But that's, again, the idea of having systems. It's easier to kind of deal with the chaotic nature of life. It's about having a good team around you. It's about having that vision that you're building towards. So, I think, like, Joseph Campbell always talks about kind of the hero's journey. Like, I mean, you have to go into the cave that you most fear, or whatever. Like, it's just, having any kind of purpose or want in life is not easy, you know. Yeah. And actually, you don't want it easy, because the story you tell of your struggles is what you tell. You don't tell the story of, like, oh, it was really easy, and I did that. Yeah. You know, you always say the toughest story, because that's where the biggest growth comes, but it's also where the most interesting thing is with life, you know. And that's one thing you have to be really mindful of. I keep reminding myself, even this morning, actually, I was driving down here, and, like, we're going to die. Like, it
happen right now.
Yeah. But genuinely, like, you're going to die.
Yeah.
And when you really, like, I meditate on that for 30 days at the start of the year. Like, you're going to die. And when you really, like, when you really feel that, you go, wow, like, why do I care? Like, why am I actually really caring? And what am I really doing here? You know, like Damien Brown, I don't know if you know Damien Brown.
Yeah, I've heard him a couple of times.
Old Stock on Instagram. He's a ex-professional Ruby player. He is working with us on a new platform that we're building currently. And he's, right now, actually, he's climbing Everest. Yeah. And I just never I've never seen a man like him who's actively worked on finding his purpose and living a life that he has huge fulfillment from. But the work that goes on in the back end in order to find that purpose and to really be that person, but it's just so it's authentic, and it's amazing, like, you know. And it's just to get away from the noise of life and get away from the noise of modern society. Like, if it requires having these systems, it requires you to ask really hard questions, and it's going to require a different version of you right now, because if it didn't, you'd have it right now. Exactly. You know? Yeah. And again, that's one thing I would say. You're saying that we have bigger ideas and plans and stuff. There is no end. You're just trying to live a life every single day that you really enjoy, and try to create something that you have real passion for, you know, because you'll get to that end of the year of that thing that you've done and go, oh yeah, there's more. Yeah. And there's more. Because again, you just always wake up. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
You mentioned there, I think it was the podcast last week with Rob, about, I think Rob was doing the training and Damien was kind of helping with his mindset. And one of the things I loved was he was like, recognize that the training's going to be hard, or you don't want to be there. And kind of, you were saying, getting yourself into that sense of uncomfortableness.
Yeah, so that's something that Rob has done over the last year, but Damien used as well, just by kind of reframing what's going on, because like training is tough. Yeah, it's really, really tough, and no one in the depths of despair, when that gets tough, really wants to be there, because it is tough. But if you know going into this is going to be really difficult, I'm going to be in a really, really dark place. So first of all, you're pre-framing going, I know it's going to be tough. So when it happens, this is not a surprise. Yeah. Like I was expecting this. But then when you're in the middle of that chaos, you're like, yeah, I knew this was going to happen, and now you're here, you're performing, you're doing it. Because ultimately, the reason that you're doing that is to obviously get a stronger version. Like, you're trying to get fitter, you're trying to get more conditioning, you're trying to get stronger, whatever it is. But the mental aspect of that as well. Like, you're going through this knowing it's going to be terribly tough. You're then in the middle of that actually performing it, but you can actually perform better.
Yeah.
You can really be in the middle of that and be so present. And that's the difference. When you start to work in these systems and have these questions in the middle of this chaos, you're right in the center of this.
Yeah.
And it's actually never as bad as you think it's going to be.
Yeah.
When you're in the middle of it, it's like, this is,
Yeah.
I'm living it. Like, it's here. It's now.
Exactly. You mentioned on Shout Out to the Primal podcast, I know Danny's listening, you mentioned the McGregor mindset, I am the champion. Can you explain that to listeners?
Well, that was something that was massive for me about 18 months ago. Because again, I've had these big visions of in terms of what I want to do. But McGregor used to always say, for a good year or two before he was champion, that I am the champion. You know, I am the champion. And all this, and I was like, I used to laugh at it as well. You know, he's just saying this. He's mental. You know, whatever. But then the more you when he kept saying it, and he was like, I don't need the belt to be the champion. I'm showing up every single day, and I am the best. And you're like, oh yeah, because the whole point of getting the belt, the whole point of me building these products, the whole point of you doing the training and ultimately performing on that pitch, you're doing that because you know the person you have to become in order to actually do that. So you can be that person right now. Yeah. That's the only reason that we have all these goals. Yeah. Because you'll get to that thing, like I said, and you won't feel any different. Yeah. But you will be a different person because it requires a different person to get to that next level. Yeah. They always say, like, new levels, new devils. Like, you're not good enough right now to be that champion. Yeah. But he's like, I am the champion. So he shows up in his training. He shows up in his lifestyle. He has the mindset of the champion. He doesn't need to get that belt to then now have all that stuff. Because the champion is in the journey. Exactly. Well, the champion is here right now. Yeah. We're waiting for more money. We're waiting for the belt. We're waiting for that external thing. But you don't need that permission. Do it right now. Embody it right now. And that's something that I just didn't do. I had huge visions and we were doing well. It's all good. But like, it's just like, in order for me to say that I want all this stuff, what the hell am I doing right now? And I think I'm just not living a life that this person would ever live. Yeah. So I remember seeing someone, it's actually last month I was watching something, someone bought a house in America for 26 million. And he's like, I saw the house 3 years ago and I looked up and I was like, that's 26 million. And I reframed it and said, who would I need to be to have a house like that? I love that. Yeah, and it was but such a different question. Now, I'm not saying that you have to go and get a 26 million house. Who cares? But again, it's like, how would that person show up? What does he do every single day? There's no way that he is watching Netflix every single minute of the day. Like, he just isn't. Like, that's just not happening. Like, and whatever, you don't have to go for that 26 million. But what do you want from life? And work backwards. Exactly. Reverse engineer it. What does that person need to be? Who do you need to be in order to reach that goal that you say you really want? Yeah. You're telling me you really, really want that. Yeah. And if you're not willing to do that work, you don't want that. Yeah. So go and find something you do want, because then you will show up as the person that you claim you want to be. And that's what McGregor did. So the belt came as a result of him being the champion and saying that he is the champion and showing up every single day as the champion without the belt. And that's ultimately why we're on this journey of life, because you're continuing trying to grow into this vision, into this person, to have this impact that you really want to have. And that just requires you to show up in that way. Where did you learn this? Like, who do you get value from that you can pick the brains about this? Is there anyone particularly maybe on social media that maybe the listeners can follow and find value from? Well, actually, I unfollowed everyone on social media. Oh, did you? Yeah, only because I was just taking up, I didn't follow many people. I only followed about 100 or 200 people. And I actually unfollowed everyone just because I don't find value and I just kind of get lost in it. You know what I mean? It kind of doesn't really give me a huge amount of value. So, like, there's no one really on social media I would say that I could say kind of point to and go towards. Okay. But there's definitely, like, I read continuously. I'm trying to upgrade it. Like, I have mentors. I have 4 mentors now currently. 2 in movement, 1, like I said, in spiritual kind of aspect, and 1 in business. Okay. So, like, they're just people who are doing things that I want to be able to do that I can't do yet. So I give them money to give me accountable. I give them money to give me their experience. Okay. And I give them money to make sure that I'm doing the work that I say I want to do to be them, essentially, you know. Yeah. And that's what I would just say to do. Like reading is just massive. Like, look at your mindset as your body. It's continually evolving. It affects the choices you make. The beliefs that you have will impact every aspect of your life. But your brain is malleable. You can literally learn anything. And we just stop doing this at a young age, or we think we're stuck this way, or we're surrounded by these people. Social media, internet has changed everything. We're no longer just Ireland in this little small place. We are the world. We have access to people that you can pay online, like you can follow on social media, you can read and reach out to anybody. And anyone who's done something that you want to do, they're just like you and me. The difference is they're doing things that you're not doing right now, but they're just being pulled towards a vision. They're actively working on this stuff, because again, if you're kind of staying still, you're essentially kind of dying, really, because we're as human beings, we're meant to evolve. We're always constantly trying to level up for survival. It has to be more. So the aim is that if you're actively working on that, you're always going to be like just the next up 1%, 1%, 1%, 1%. So yeah, look at your mindset like your body. It has to be trained, it has to be worked on, and that can be difficult as well. Yeah,
you know, it's easier said than done.
Yeah, like again, that spiritual coach that I have, sometimes I couldn't be bothered meditating. Like that's why I pay him to make sure that I'm doing the work and all that. Like I meditated yesterday. I was like, I don't really want to do it. Obviously, I felt great after it, like you would say when you're training and all that. But like, it's like, I'm going to do it. I'm paying this person. I'm putting time, effort, and money into this. I may as well sit down here now and do this thing that I say I want to do. But it's just having that system there, because ultimately, I have to be the person that I say I want to be in order to reach the goals I want to reach.
Yeah. Is that the biggest thing you've taken away from working with a mentor? Is that accountability?
Yeah. Also the accountability, but also seeing the inside of what they do.
Okay.
Like when it comes to business, even for example, there's like I have a mentor who is say 3 or 4 years ahead of me in terms of what he can actually do in terms of his business and the impact that he's had. And when you see the inner workings, you go, wow. Okay. And you might from the outside went like, oh yeah, that's just lucky, or I could do that, or whatever. But then you see what he does, and then even say my spiritual coach, like what he does and the mindset that he's in. That's I see what he does. Like all the work that he does, even the movement aspect side of things, the detail and everything that they do. Like there's a reason why they have so much knowledge and why they're reading and what they're teaching and the results they're getting, etc. It's like every one of them just really gives you an insight into their life, the practices that they have every single day, and it really reveals where you're kind of missing, you know. And that's the beauty of it. A mentor just opens up a world to you that you can make mistakes for 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 years, and you might get there, but like you're just going down dead alleys. It's going to be much, much tougher, and you might actually struggle to get there. But that mentor going, I've done this thing that you want to do. Here's the path. And it's not any easier. But you have a clear path now to follow. It's not having to go left, right, and there's a clear path. If you follow these steps, you can get to this level that you say you want to. So investment has been key for me. Investment in courses, investment in actual people, and in books. I'm not a big fan of reading a load of books. I remember I got to a stage like last year. I was like, try and read a book a week or something like that. But it actually didn't take in a lot of the knowledge. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So now trying to get through so many books,
And Naval saying you should read like 100 of the best books over and over and over again, because you'll always learn something new. Now I don't do that. I'm not reading the same books all the time, but I have gone back to so many books. And I've just taken different things or highlighted different parts to go, I actually understand that more now because of my experience that I've had over the last year or whatever. So if you find a really good book that you enjoy, keep going back to it, keep taking bits out of it, and then apply.
Yeah, I'm going to wrap that from you as well. I have a couple of specific sort of movement questions for you. I mentioned before I have a background in GEA, I'm coaching. What are we overlooking as athletes in terms of movement? And let's say, like, for example, GEA, there's such a huge, like, hips and hip injuries are really prevalent at the moment. What are we overlooking and help to prevent that?
Yeah, as I mentioned about the pelvis and the hips for the warm-up, I think it is an area that is definitely kind of undertrained or not really focused on a huge amount, because when it comes to Gaelic football, as I mentioned, you're moving side to side, you're turning left and right. It's not just all in this kind of straight line. And unfortunately in the gym, it is all just a kind of perfect prep of, you know, bench press or a squat up and down. There's no real lateral movement, you know. So I do think training the hips and training the pelvis in particular are just areas that should be trained, and that can be trained in the gym or specifically then, but you know, mobility drills or breathing drills or whatever. So I think that is key. But then with Gaelic as well, and we were actually talking about this on podcast, just the training volume. It's just something that has to be really, it has to be focused on a lot more, especially for the young athletes. From the age, as you mentioned, from about 14 to 15 upwards to about 22 or 23. Schools, college, their local team, the, you know, intercounty, 21s, minor, like, you know, they just play for, they're the best player for everyone.
That's the problem.
Yeah, and they're having to perform for everyone, and they're able to because they're young and whatever, but they don't realize how much it's actually taking out of them, you know, because it's tough. Like, it really is, especially as we go into more modernization, as the sport becomes more professional, even though it is amateur. Like, training is getting more scientific based, etc. It's so much more taxing on the body. So definitely training areas, I believe, in terms of the pelvis and the hips, etc. But then being really focused on what you're doing every single week in terms of that training volume.
Okay, you mentioned briefly there breathing. How can, I'm interested in implementing that into my training. How can I do that? Well,
there's a couple of ways, I suppose. The two ways that we really focus on would be just kind of relaxation. So going from that kind of stressful state down towards that flight or fight mode, fight or flight down to rest or digest. Sorry. So that would just be literally breathing. Just relaxing breathing afterwards, cool down, meditative style. But the other one that we use, we actually use breathing to get more movement around the rib cage and the spine. Yeah. And actually, if you want to try it now, just to give you kind of a frame of reference. So if you're sitting down on your chair now, if you just get your hands onto your knees, and what we're going to do is you get the tongue to the roof of your mouth. That's a natural resting position for your tongue. So your nervous system just feels a lot more relaxed in that place. We're going to nasal breathe. And all you're going to do is for 5 seconds, breathe into your upper back to your shoulder blades and try and expand your shoulder blades for 5 seconds. And then you're just going to breathe out for 5 seconds, again through your nose. So what you're trying to do here, the tongue stays to the roof of your mouth to relax your nervous system. You're going to do a big inhalation. Breathe in through your nose for 5 seconds. Try and fill the upper back, expand the shoulder blades, and then you're just going to breathe out for 5 seconds, and you may even kind of feel your abs kind of engage as you breathe out as well. And what that's doing there is we're just getting expansion into an area that a lot of people haven't got much movement around the shoulder blades, around the rib cage, and we can obviously just make it more specific and kind of progress it from there.
Yeah.
But so a lot of people would see it as kind of ab work. They'll feel their abs work an awful lot. They'll feel their, like I mentioned, their rib cage activate and actually physically expand. But we call it breath work.
Yeah.
So again, the intent behind what you do, and we're just working into an area, like I said, that most people have never trained before.
100%.
So if we can give them more movement in that area, they now have more movement options in general.
Yeah.
And that's what we want to have as an athlete. That's one thing that is missing, I think, in terms of training as well for GAA athletes. It's just movement options. Because again, think about, you're going for a tackle, you're going for a ball, you're moving in all weird and wonderful ways.
Yeah.
If we can give you access to more range of motion either side, left, right, and the center, you have more options to produce that skill of making that tackle, of having that kick, doing whatever, because there is no one perfect way to physically move on that pitch. And the more control of your body, the more options you have of your body, the easier it is for your body to physically go and perform.
Yeah, I actually did that breathing thing there. You would have seen me. But I realised from the first rep to the last rep, you've a bigger range of motion in your shoulders. Like, that's, again, intent. But you just realise, and I remember doing, in the movement assessment, doing that kind of spinal flexion, the difference from the first to the last rep was huge. And there wasn't even that much improvement, because obviously it was within the space of a minute. But it just shows, like, if you're training something you haven't trained or you have intent, that there is a difference there. And
that's the brilliant thing about that, is like, you can see then if you can make a tiny little difference within space of a minute or an hour, imagine doing that consistently for a week, for a month, for a year. And that's how adaptable the human body is. Like, your body gets really good at what you do. So you can't be surprised that your hips or pelvis doesn't move that well if you never kind of trained them.
Yeah.
But you can train them. The body is hugely adaptable, and that's the best thing. If anyone follows me on social media and thinks it's amazing what I do, I've just done this for 10 years.
Exactly.
That's all it really is.
And that's what I meant earlier, is there's actually nothing special about you or the athletes. No. You just keep doing it.
Exactly. It's brilliant. Yeah. And that's the thing. Don't be held back by your mind saying you can't do it.
Yeah.
Because you've never actually tried this before. And that's the beauty, again, of going to a mentor, going to a coach, going to somebody that is doing something you want to do that you can't do yet. You go and learn. Yeah. And then you just apply. Because they've done it. They've shown that it's possible. So if they've done it, you can do it. If you want it, you can definitely do it.
Exactly. Speaking about a specific thing, you mentioned before sitting on the ground watching TV, and I'm only mentioning this because my mum, she wants to get into all this movement stuff for her back and her hips. Why should we sit on the ground watching TV?
It's not even necessarily that. It was more just to be like, to have, like, when we sit, we kind of just take for granted that we'll just sit in this chair and this is we will be kind of forever.
Yeah.
So the aim is, like, you're a product of your environment. And your environment can be whatever it is. It doesn't have to be a chair. You can sit on the floor, you can sit on the couch, you can sit on the table here, you can sit with your legs crossed, you can sit in a 90-90 position.
Yeah.
It's just like, don't be afraid to
Try it.
Yeah, to be a little bit weird in your environment. Like, it's like, because again, we're just told that we go and do this thing in our home or in our work or in modern society. Again, the gym and sport is just invented by humans.
Exactly.
So if they're invented by humans, that means you can invent and
Something
you
else.
want to invent. Yeah.
Yeah.
You just make up your own exercises. You can make up your own exercise. You can make up whatever you want, you know. So again, just question things. What you do kind of day to day, question how you physically move, and can you explore in any kind of weird way you want to.
I like that. Looking forward, you kind of mentioned plans. I don't know if you want to mention on this, but what can we expect over the next couple of months?
We have a few programs coming out in terms of Movement 101. I won't mention that program or one or two of the programs because they're not finalized just yet. But we have a new platform with Damien Brown called Tell Us that's coming out, and that's only going to be for high-level performers. Actually, that's people who've gone through the process of Movement 101, who've worked with us individually and are kind of ready to go to the next level.
Okay.
And that's kind of the aim with Movement 101 now. We're trying to take it to the next level and then build, like Mobile for Life and in its trend, kind of different products that are going to just kind of ask different questions. So we're going down a kind of a new avenue.
Okay.
With Damien. Damien's a world adventurer and has built this kind of lifestyle mindset system. It's currently a year's worth of content. That's amazing. So we're now trying to just go to the next level of our community and try and go deeper than we've probably ever gone before.
That sounds really interesting.
Yeah, and again, it's kind of like, that's kind of the aim now, as we kind of begin to expand, we kind of ask deeper questions, we kind of invest things a little bit differently, and that's the joys of life. Something that I would have said I wanted to do 3 years ago. Yeah, it's kind of a different animal now. Just because you kind of just step in and things happen and you know, experience stuff, and it's great to be able just to, you know, create and just try things.
Exactly. Longer term then, maybe let's say 10 years down the road, where do you see yourself? Can you maybe picture yourself that far away?
Yeah, well, what am I now? 34, so 44. Yeah, no, I definitely still see Movement 101 being here in some shape or form. What that shape or form would be will probably be a lot different than it is now. But, you know, I still see myself kind of working. I still see myself trying to help people physically move better or changing their lives through movement, or certainly giving them the tools and the principles to transform their lives. But ideally, we just kind of have a bigger impact. Like I said, we are building new projects that I probably can't just say just yet what they are. And we are going down kind of a different avenue in terms of where we are. But as our team expand, as we get more experienced people on that team, our vision will definitely begin to grow. So please God, in 10 years' time, we are doing more of what we're kind of doing now.
Okay, interesting. And before I move on to Sideline 7, who would you like to see on the podcast? Maybe a particular athlete. They don't have to work with you or not, but I might get your help to get them on.
Okay, who would I like to see on the podcast? I would like to see, I'd like to see James Mccarthy on here, because James,
I'd love to chat to James.
Yeah, because James, as we mentioned, like especially when I started working with him initially, he's really grown into like a serious athlete, and his mindset in particular was someone that I learned a huge amount from. Okay. And I have a huge amount of respect for what he's kind of grown into as an athlete, because especially now, he all he knows is winning. Yeah, that's how good he is. Yeah, and he's been a huge key driver in that team. 100%. In order to get him to that level, he sets standards for himself that he ends up meeting, and it almost pulls everyone around him to that standard as well. And he takes that into his own career. He takes that into his own personal life as well. So I just think his story, even outside of Gaelic, never mind in Gaelic though, would be huge, because I think he's been a huge catalyst and driver for that team doing what they've done.
100%. Will he be on the Movement 101 podcast?
We'll get him on eventually, yes.
Yeah, eventually.
At some stage.
Yeah. So the Sideline 7, it's the same 7 questions for every guest at the end of each episode. Question 1, what is your favourite quote?
Favourite quote? Yeah, I was thinking about this because you sent me the questions, and I was thinking what it could be. I don't necessarily have a favourite quote, because it's kind of like there's so many, and a lot of them are kind of cliche. But that idea of, they say about insanity, doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result. Yeah. Because it is something that I've done in the past, and it's like, again, I say I want to do one thing, but then I end up showing up as the other thing. Yeah. And then it really reveals to me that I don't want that thing. Yeah. So it is something that I always question myself in terms of, as I'm showing up every single day, as I'm doing the things that I'm doing, if I keep doing the same thing, that quote always pops into my head, doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result. So that means to me that what I say I want, I don't want. Mm-hmm. So I have to find out what I actually really do want. So it just makes me reflect on what I'm doing, because I keep doing the thing I say I don't want to do. Yeah. I have to change tack then and find a new way of doing something that I want to do.
Yeah,
Does that
that
make
kind
sense?
of ties into this whole conversation what we had.
Okay, I like
Yeah,
that.
it's nice to wrap up. Best sporting event you've been to?
Best sporting event. Oh, I've been so many. They're amazing. Off the top of my head, in fairness, I think it has to be down in, it was Mount Juliet when Tiger Woods came over for the first time.
Wow.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
went down for the practice day on, and it was the first time I saw Tiger. I was hugely into golf as well, and I met so many of the players. We actually went backstage. We went behind the scenes
Deadly.
and met loads of the players, and that was a kind of a game changer for me in terms of my golfing aspect. It was kind of the first time I met really big superstars as well. I think I
Okay.
was about 12 years of age.
Wow, okay.
And yeah, that was kind of that's something that's always stuck in my head and I've never ever forgotten.
Yeah, that's a pretty cool moment. What was that like, meeting your heroes?
Yeah, it was really cool.
Yeah.
'Cause they were all really, really like amazing. And then it was because it was like watching a movie.
Yeah.
Because it's just something I would see for years, them on TV. And now these people who were from America and different lands were coming over here. And I was just like, oh my God, they're real people. Like they were literally like, I couldn't believe it, like, you know.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's always stuck in my head. And it wasn't even necessarily Tiger Woods, he just happened to be there. But everyone else around it, like lesser known players who I can't even think of now. But like, yeah, it was amazing.
Yeah,
It was so cool.
It's class. I was reading a story about Rachel Blackmore there during the weekend after she won. Some guy put it up a couple of years ago. His son was down watching the races and he went around, asked people his autographs, and they gave autographs or whatever, but she took him in to the backstage and made sure everyone got the autographs. And I just thought that was a really nice moment because
That's
they
so
say
cool.
not to meet your heroes, but
Yeah.
when they're nice like that, and as you said, they're real people, that's really cool.
Yeah,
experience.
and that is the beauty though as well. That I've met so many kind of athletes over the years. Like they really are just real people. You know,
Yeah.
like it's crazy how much we put them up on the pedestal and as if they're different than you and me. You know,
Yeah.
like they have the same fears, they have the same challenges that we have every single day. You know, and the beauty of that is just knowing the power you have to achieve what you want to achieve.
100%. Biggest setback or challenge so far in your career?
In my career, it probably would have been that aspect, I suppose, of deciding to kind of go into more movement. That was a big kind of setback and challenge that I kind of had to get through.
Yeah.
And then, like I said, I've burnt myself out twice, pretty big in terms of movement 101 times.
Okay.
And again, that quote going back to doing the same thing over and over again. Like the second time, I was doing the same thing that I did the first time.
Yeah.
And it's like, you can't just keep doing these things, you know. So it was a challenge for me to show up as the person that I wanted to show up as, and maybe that I wasn't living a life that I really did value, you
Yeah.
know. But challenges are kind of happen every single day, you know.
Yeah.
Like they're good things, really. Because again, both of them things that happen in terms of me burning out and having to take some time off from work was like the best thing ever happened.
Yeah.
You know, like it really, really was. And without them things, I wouldn't be the person I am today or doing the things that I'm doing today.
Yeah.
And I look forward to the challenges ahead, essentially.
That's a good mindset to have. Then on the flip side, then your biggest achievement?
Biggest achievement, I suppose, would be my little daughter, I have to say.
Yeah.
She's amazing. She's 18 months old, and it's madness when you have a child. There's a love that you feel that's actually undescribable.
Okay.
And it's because this child, God love her, it means if she's in your company and without you, she's nothing. She's going to not survive. So all the pressure is on you, but it's also a huge privilege as well. So
Yeah.
that, because as much, don't get me wrong, everything I do is definitely for movement, but there's a family aspect for me and my wife and my one child. I will be having a few more children in the future as well that you can never kind of take away or replicate. So that's been the biggest achievement so far.
Yeah, that's a lovely. She'd be delighted now if she listened.
Yeah, which won't understand it, so it's fine.
Advice to your 18-year-old self?
18-year-old self. Yeah, I was thinking about this. I don't know what advice I would give, because what I would say is kind of like, yeah, just keep going, even though I didn't know what I was doing. You know what I mean? Because I don't think I would have listened,
Okay.
no matter what I said. I would have been like, yeah, look, you're a bit of an idiot,
Yeah.
but keep going and you'll get
figure
through
it
it.
out.
Yeah, you'll figure it out. Yeah,
Yeah.
because the idea of this, of what would you tell your 18-year-old self, I really don't think most 18-year-olds would listen to themselves. They just wouldn't, because again, you're kind of like, yeah, whatever. Or even
I
if
know
you,
what's best.
yeah, or even if you don't know what's best, you're like, shut up. I don't know. What the hell? You don't know either. What are you talking about?
Yeah.
Like, I'm such a different person than I was when I was 18.
Yeah.
And I suppose that's what I would say. I would say, look, continue as you are, but you're going to look back at this and go, wow, I can't believe I was that person. Or you're going to be such a different person when you're 34 or even when you're 24. You're going to continue to grow, so don't worry.
Yeah.
And that's what I would love to get across to my daughter. You know, like, it's like, look, everything's going to be fine,
Yeah.
regardless of what happens. You know, literally, like, death will occur around you and everything's going to be fine. We're going to die and everything's going to be fine.
Yeah.
Like, it's going to be fine.
Yeah.
Like, just
It's going to be fine.
It is though, but genuinely, like,
Yeah.
just show up and live your life. You know what I mean? You
Yeah.
have to have all the answers because no one does. You're not going to always know what to do or what the next step is.
Mm.
But the idea is that everything is going to be fine. Whatever happens, we'll move forward. Like human beings, they're hugely adaptable and can get through any like chaos and awfulness in life because it's happened left, right, and centre and has done for literally thousands and millions of years. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
So, yeah, I would say keep going. You're going to be all right.
Would you wish you have journaled back then so now you could look back?
Yeah, that'd be interesting, actually.
Yeah,
Yeah. And I
that.
wonder, because I always wondered about social media when I was 18, because I see young people now and social media, and I wonder if I would have been inspired by the entrepreneurial side of stuff and the mindset side of stuff, or would I got lost down the toughness of social media, you know, because obviously it is quite tough for young people with social media. So, yeah, I don't know how I would have taken all of this stuff or what I would have been like, but journaling would have been something that would have helped regardless of what, and even just to look back, just because the idea of even just talking to someone or writing your own thoughts down, it's a huge thing because it's not just in you and you're actually able to understand it, whether you actually read it and understand it, but just by getting it out, you're actually understanding what's inside of you. You're actually getting what's inside of you out and you're processing it, whether you're doing that constantly or not. And that's the beauty of actually journaling. And again, like you said, there's so many ways to journal. I just call it writing. Like, it's just writing. That's all it has to be. You just write. And what do you write about? Whatever. Don't overthink these things. It's the same with like movement. What should I do? Like, how can I move? Don't overthink it. Work into areas that you're not working into right now. Move your hip this way. Move your spine that way. Well, it's a bit tight there. Of course it is. You'd never move there. But just explore. It's the same with writing. It's the same with your life. You know, try things that you want to try that kind of feel good or working towards your goals. You know. So sitting down with your own thoughts and just getting them out there is invaluable for so many people.
Dream dinner guest and why?
Yeah, I was thinking about this as well. I don't know who my dream dinner guest would be, but I think it would be someone like who's done. I think it would be someone in the past who's gone through a bit of hardship and like. Well, not necessarily got through it all, but had learnings and teachings, you know, to give. So, who that would be, I don't really know. But like, I do know that it would definitely be someone who was. I suppose no. If I was to say an athlete of someone that I kind of really respected and looked up to and had a tough time, would be Tony Adams off Arsenal. Tony Adams was an amazing footballer for Arsenal centre back, and he. Went through some real hardships with alcohol and he came out the other side. So I'd actually love just to hear his journey. Because I actually think there's so much worth and value in just listening to somebody else who's gone through so much. And you can just take bits from that. Like it's not necessarily about someone who's achieved a huge amount. It's actually about someone who's just survived actually something that's from the outside in looks pure chaotic and they've actually come out the other side.
It's kind of like, do you want to talk to someone with, let's say, 10 All-Irelands or who maybe fell at the hurdle of 10 All-Irelands and learned from those?
And even just the beauty of that as well, of like kind of getting someone that would have a vision in terms of even someone who's changed now in comparison to what they did previous as well. Because I think that it is important in terms of our growth and our evolvement, that we are evolving, that we do change, that we're not just this footballer forever. Because again, you won't be, and eventually you're going to have to let go of that, you know. So that doesn't define you, you know. You're a human being first and foremost. So, you know, who are you as a human being?
To remember that as well. Final question then, if your life was a book, what chapter would this be called?
This chapter would be called Enjoy the Now is what I'd say. Because it is something that I've worked on very hard over the last year, is just to really enjoy the presence of life, and having a child as well has really helped that. Because a child knows no different apart from right now. When you take something off that child, she'll bawl her eyes out because she thinks it's gone forever. So the idea being like all there really is now, and as an entrepreneur, as you're constantly creating, you can kind of get out of that now. So just enjoying it right now. This is something that I've always wanted to do. It was a dream 3, 4, 5, 6 years ago, and I'm living it now, and there is no end. So just to enjoy it every single day and to show up and to live life to the full.
Do you think that journaling helps your mind? That
100%. And like I said, that reflection as well. You're always kind of looking back, and like I said, then to read old journals and that. But journaling and meditation, and again, journaling and meditation, like I said, can be different things to different people. So it's not just this way one to journal, not just one way just to meditate, but them two practices have been life changing for me. Just in terms of me as a human, me being more present, me being able to show up as the person I want to be, and also working towards that vision that I really value and I really embody, or certainly try to embody every single day. And the sooner you can start either or both, I definitely would.
Okay, I'll have to get on the meditation route then. But look, Brian, thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate your time, and I just want to wish you the best of luck with everything going forward. If the listeners don't know who you are, where is the best place to find you? Probably Instagram. So at Brian_movement101, or you can check us out on movement101.com. We also have a podcast, little snippets on Spotify, on YouTube, but Instagram. Any questions at all, feel free to drop me a DM. Perfect. I'll be sure to link it in the description box below. But yeah, Brian, thanks a million for coming on, and really appreciate it. Pleasure, Roland. Thank you very much. A huge thank you to Brian for joining me on the podcast. There were so many amazing takeaways and teaching points in that episode, so be sure to let me know over on social media at The Sideline Live what you thought of the conversation. As always, a massive thank you to Primal Productions for their advice and support. If you're looking to start your own podcast or bring your current podcast to the next level, be sure to get in touch with them over on Instagram at Primal Pro.